Okay, we're recording now, Elaine.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is a meeting of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force and Evaluation Committee. It is being recorded. We are all here except for Jim Hood, who can't join us today. We are hoping that Kurt Felix from the Clean Water Advisory Committee will be joining us at some time this morning. But perhaps he wasn't able to make it exactly at 10 o'clock. I did send you just this morning the email from Kurt, as he very kindly went through the three proposals and made some notes. But hopefully we will get to talk to him directly about that. I did not contact the fire or police myself. I thought if we want to still do that, I don't know, Harry, if you have any reports of discussions with them, or I will contact them and ask them if they want to come to one of our next meetings.
I did send the fire chief links to the three responses, and I did tell him that we had meetings scheduled through mid-September, but I didn't invite him to a meeting or invite comment from him. I've not contacted the police chief about this at all.
Okay, all right. Would we like to have both those folks at one of our upcoming meetings? I think their input could be helpful, to the town, especially when it finally goes into the LDA process, kind of having some of the points right up front. Okay. Harry, do you want to invite the fire chief, or do you want me to just reach out to them?
I can certainly do that. We have a meeting again Thursday this week, I believe, or Wednesday.
Wednesday at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Do you want to do both, or?
Yeah, I can do both.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll just keep our eye out for Kurt. The next thing on the agenda was to finalize the questions for the people who had volunteered to call the references. I sent out the list of general questions that we talked about last time, and I didn't know if, based on our interviews on Friday, if anybody had any additional questions they'd want to include. Can I
put them up on the screen for us, Elaine?
Yep. Can I share my screen, Harry?
I'll make you a co-host. This was
Or you can share them, whichever. Okay.
This was behaving a little strange this morning. I don't know if two people were trying to start the same meeting or what.
I think Rebecca was going to host it this morning for us, but so that might have been that.
Okay, well,
She was able to, Rebecca Eldridge, but that might have been what was going on.
could be. Well, you and I are co-hosts now.
Okay, so just a sec. I gotta get the screen share.
Did we ever decide who was going to do which one?
No, we're going to do that this morning.
Okay, yeah, got to get going with that. Yeah.
Okay, now, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
I'm not seeing where it's allowing me to screen share. Zoom meeting. I'm not getting the screen share button. Oh, there we go. Okay. All righty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, these were the general questions. There are 12 of them. I think 12 is plenty, actually. We have a financial reference for each of these developers, and none of these questions really apply to that. Laura had said that she had some examples of questions, which I have asked for, but haven't gotten yet. I'm not sure of what would be the correct questions in this situation for this, but we certainly have plenty to start with. We have 3 references for each. And so definitely I would love to get started on that this week. So we can have reports at the next meetings. We do have to choose who's going to call whom. I have the feeling some people might have a preference, but otherwise I can just, oh, Bert's coming in. Great, that's great. I thought we could just go by last name and pick. So that would mean Kathleen. Would you like?
I'd like Civico.
I had the feeling you would say that.
Also, Elaine, if you could, I didn't get these questions. I don't know why. I haven't got them on my iPad. So if I could get a printed copy of this left for me at Town Hall, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
And I will start on this right away.
Okay, I'll drop that off later today.
Thank you so much for that.
Okay. So Olga, we have ONP. Olga, do you have a preference between the community builders and POA?
No.
And do you have a preference? All right, well, Olga, would you do the community's POA? POA?
Okay.
And Jan, the community builders?
Right.
Okay. These are the contacts we have for each. So those will be, I'll print those out for you, Olga. I mean, everybody. Kathleen, I'll drop that off. with
Yes.
Thank you.
questions. For Civico, for POA, there are 4, but one is the financial reference. So you won't be calling what's listed as the financial reference until we get a few. I know it's only a couple of questions, but do not call the financial ones listed yet. So you know what, for Civico, Kathleen, I'm going to add the tiny village. No, the tiny village is there, Oriole Landing. There's one other, the Sherborne, even though it's an adult 55 community. I think we should have those 2. I'll add that to the list. I think calling 3 is reasonable. And for the community builders,
Mhm.
there we go.
I don't see a list in front of me. Are you sharing that?
Yes.
Oh, I have the questions. I don't see the,
It's in an email that just
Okay,
occurred.
so let me get rid of the question. Okay, wait a minute. Let me stop sharing. Let me do it again and see if this works. There we go.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so whoops.
Yeah, so I sent these to everybody this morning.
Oh, okay. It's
All right,
this
so that's why I haven't got it yet.
Yeah, okay. So this list is also included in what you sent with the questions.
Yep, there were 2 separate.
Okay, okay, good.
And the people to call.
Okay, because I didn't open it. And so how many do you have for community?
For community builders.
We
here
do, yeah, 4, but not the financial.
Right, the first 3, but not the
Okay.
financial one until we get those questions.
Okay.
Same thing
Okay, thank you.
for POA, it's Canal Bluffs, Malpet Farm, and Torrey Woods. And then those are the 3. And Kathleen, for Civico, I'm gonna add the Sherborne one, because the other 2 are financial references.
Okay.
so that you'll each be calling 3 with the general questions. Any more comments or discussions about that?
Nope.
From, as far as the questions are concerned, there's one about construction. How would you rate the quality of construction? But none about the contractor that was chosen and how that went. Because I think that's, can be a big part of headaches. Were they responsive? Were they late? That sort
I'll
of thing.
just add I can add, how would you rate the contractor and the quality of
The
construction?
builder that they chose.
Mhm. And some people you're calling may not know the answers.
I know.
So that's fine. You just
Yeah.
move on. You get the answers to the questions that they can answer. And then at the end, you ask anything else. And if they have anything else, hopefully they will offer it.
I mean, you could even ask how many change orders, things like that. I've been in the field like that, and a lot of things happen.
Okay, well, whoops, no,
Yeah.
that's not what I wanted. Are you seeing the questions again?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think there's one where that could be put in.
It all says developer, and yeah,
I'm sorry, Olga, where are you?
no, I'm not at any particular question, but all of the questions seem to say, how did you like the developer? And, how was the process of construction, not the quality? Maybe number 3 could have us, 2 questions in it. How would you rate the process and quality of construction? Does that seem reasonable?
I think things will come out,
Yeah.
Yeah, Olga, it says, how would you rate the contractor and the quality of the construction? I
just
think asking that question would, bring up, your other concerns.
Right. So I'd like the other 2 people to try to hone in on that when there's an opportunity.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I just added those, but I will send this to the 3 of you again. And, but let's get going on it.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. I guess, how would you rate the developer and their team? You're talking about the developer and their team. So. All right, I see that Kurt has joined us. Great, thank you. So I'm going to stop this screen share. Good morning, Kurt.
Morning, how are you?
I think we're good. Yeah. Kathleen, your hand is up. Are you still?
Yeah, I have a question, and I'll just do it quickly before we get to Kurt. I wonder if it's possible if we can ask, we should have maybe done this on Friday. Are any of the developers planning on using the former COA building, either for office and construction storage during the build? I wonder if we could ask about that, prior. I know in the RFP, it's stated that we want the former COA building removed and demolished. But are any of them planning to use it during the build or while they're on site? Is that a good question, Harry, to maybe know in advance?
Well, I've been in that building with the select board and DPW director.
I
It's
have
not
too.
habitable. It's,
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't put a person in there right now.
So they're likely to be using a construction trailer.
I would think so, yes.
Okay,
but they could use the building for some other purpose if they wanted to. But we really, at that point, we're not really caring. We're like out of the project pretty much.
Yeah. Okay, hand down.
Okay, Kurt, thank you for joining us and thank you for taking a look at the 3 proposals and sending the notes that you sent.
Sure.
Did you see any issues with any of them that you think we should be sure to follow up on?
I think the Civico was very responsive, as was the POA CDP. The community builders really didn't have either confirmation around their participation or a financial proposal that was consistent with the RFP. So to me, that needed some, their proposal needed some filling in. I would ultimately imagine that regardless of, the wastewater kind of concerns here, that, we're going to have to entertain some negotiation with the ultimately chosen developer anyway around that. So it's not something that I'm terribly worried about, but the community builders proposal, did not really, was not really responsive.
I think we had interviews with all 3 on Friday, and I believe they addressed that it was in their budget, but that was how they were addressing it at this point. Is that what they said? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, the information was in the budget, but they hadn't spelled it out quite as clearly.
The budget assumes 44% for wastewater is what they said. Yeah.
Yeah. A quick, Kurt, Kathleen, I've got a quick question. Who ultimately pulls the permit for the wastewater construction? Who is it, the developer or the town that's going to be pulling the permit?
It'll be the town. It's going to be a town. It's town, town facility, town equipment.
Okay, so in our interviews with POA and CDP last Friday, Julie Kramer, expounded on the experience they have pulling the wastewater permit. And I wanted to interrupt and correct her that it would be the town ultimately pulling the permit, not POA, on this project. So that's good to know. And maybe she doesn't know that. I don't know, but.
Yeah, the challenge that what makes this one different, I'm sure that many of the developers have either, installed similar types of systems in the past, or, obviously dealt with, they have to have a wastewater solution, but normally that's just for the project. In this particular instance, because we're, the facility is going to serve more than the project, it'll serve the fire department, police department, school, and potentially residents in the neighborhood. So it's a public sewage treatment plant, not a private one.
Thank you.
Heard a question, Elaine, based on our site visits, Kurt, we saw one in Westport, wastewater treatment facility. And the comment by the director of the site was that it is incredibly expensive to run. She said something like, I think, Harry, what, $3,000 a month? I'm pretty sure. That
Yeah, it was something on that order, but my take on that is that they have to manage the property. They have to offer rentals in our different affordability tiers, and that's really not an issue that we need to be concerned about any more than how expensive is the paint to repaint the trim every 10 years.
Oh, okay. Because I was concerned about that. It seemed she was saying that it was so expensive. Is that your experience, Kurt, with these things? I just wondered if they're exorbitantly expensive.
No, I don't think they are. And those costs were outlined pretty clearly in the Bowler report. So I think one of the things they did was look at obviously the capital and operating costs of each of the variety of systems they were looking at.
right.
So it's,
It's
it's well
affordable.
known. It's
Okay.
well known what they are.
Okay, thank you.
Kurt, when we did meet with the abutters, I think the wastewater was one of the main concerns. And, we realized we focused a lot on the Duck Creek watershed and how it will actually help clean that up. Does that work for all surrounding areas? I mean, there's some concern about the leaching field and what will be going into it from a 46 unit development, and how well will this whole system take care of that and the flow and things like that?
That's a pretty big question with regard to just nitrogen. Obviously, that's going down in the watershed as a result of bringing in the other properties beyond the 95 Lawrence project. So there's a net reduction being proposed for the watershed with regard to nitrogen. With regard to anything else, those things are going into the watershed anyway. It's not substantively going to change. The one thing that I think is an ongoing concern, or these contaminants of emerging concern, things that people are putting in their, drains, whether it's cleaning products, whether it's pharmaceuticals and a variety of other things. And that's a big unknown. None of that's regulated. But in terms of the abutters, the project itself is not going to add a substantial load. In fact, the treatment facility is going to be removing a significant amount of the load that's already going into the watershed.
Other questions for Kurt? Gary?
Kurt, thanks for joining us. Two questions. Any status on where we are in our own effort, either in design or the MassWorks grant, or anything has changed in the last couple of months? Number one.
Nothing's changed. Becky's anxiously waiting for some kind of confirmation from, about the MassWorks grant. We haven't and don't plan to do anything until a developer is selected and we have a project timeline.
Great. And the second thing, on our visit, they did actually talk a lot. Actually, several of the developers, or the places we went to, talked about the electrical usage for the treatment. And one of them actually installed solar on the wastewater. And I don't know if it's an idea we pursued, but it's just worth considering.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
I have one more question, Elaine. It's Kathleen. Kurt, in your notes to us, did community builders or POA, average out the cost per year for the wastewater treatment? I see that Civico did. They come up with $23,000 per year. Did POA or community builders average a price out of the expense of running it per year?
Yeah, they did. That was included in their budget.
Okay.
Kurt had mentioned to me that he would be very willing to speak to any abutters and neighbors that had questions. I assume that would be fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because I've been contacted by a couple of people, and they have pretty in-depth questions. Have been reading the Bowler report carefully, and we want to make sure we hear all those questions and that they have a chance to be answered as best as possible at this point, and then also talk about ways to make sure that ongoing conversation is
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't know at what point one says this, but I think it needs to be said. I was extremely impressed with the presentations on Friday. I thought that all three were extremely well done. They were reasonable, logical, they followed a good format. They brought all the important people to it. So all three were giving it true, not lip service, but a true attempt at getting this contract. And I just thought they all three did a wonderful job. So I wanted to mention that in general.
I'll ask you to say that again under the evaluation part of our.
Okay, well, yeah.
But I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
All right, well, Kurt, thank you for being available. Thank you and your committee for all the work you're doing. How about any of the other pieces that this was part of? All waiting on grants and things?
Oh, yeah. I think Becky put in a terrific grant proposal to MassWorks, and I'd be surprised if we didn't hear something positive. And certainly if we don't, we got a great deal of encouragement from the Assistant Secretary of EPA. She spoke at the One Cape conference about 3 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And she actually made a special shout out about Wellfleet's program and, the combination of this particular project and the other things that town meeting passed, in terms of our overall wastewater plan. So I was actually quite surprised. She was effusive about Wellfleet's effort, and, coming from the number 2 at EPA, that's pretty powerful. That was pretty amazing.
Thanks.
Well, good for you, Kurt. You deserve a shout out.
Great to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Keep up the good work.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Kurt.
I thought maybe we'd have Laura helping us with the beginning of this evaluation. Elaine, no chance of that, huh?
I think she has great faith in us. She's on vacation this week.
Oh, okay. Did we decide on numbers, or did we decide on a process then?
We're not quite there yet.
All right,
Okay.
all right. I'm eager. Sorry.
The next thing on the agenda is the status of the pro forma evaluation. Harry?
No responses other than one responder saying that she was too busy to respond.
Mhm.
I have no quotes to evaluate.
Did you, Laura sent me the name of a new associate with one of the people you already contacted. And I sent that along. Is that,
Okay.
you had a chance to look at that?
I did not send that out to her, I believe. I can do that.
I think Laura said she was trying to pave the way for that. So,
Mhm. Okay.
do you have that information, or should I send you that email again?
No, I've got it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little frustrating. Normally MHP could have done this for us, but they would be potentially one of the lenders for one of the proposals. So
Mhm.
that has put them out of the action on this. So I did talk with Laura about it, and she feels it's an important step. And so she did do a little work and came up with one more name that we can potentially
Mhm.
go after.
Okay, I'll send that out after this meeting.
Harry, given how critical this is and how we don't really have that resource on our community, is it worth it to call these people, and maybe we could just divvy them up and call them?
Well, at this point, I have called about half of them and either left messages or had actual conversations. The second batch I didn't call. you know, I have no sense of whether it helps. Because, I had good email addresses for them. None of them were undeliverable. And presumably if they're looking for work, they would respond to it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I just don't have any sense of whether it makes sense to call.
Yeah. I don't know if we would have any luck if we just took out the due date and said, give us your date when you could provide this.
That is one thing I'm a little bit unclear about, because at some point I understand that if we push back the selection, that pushes back the permitting, and that potentially pushes back the ability to apply for a round of funding. And, at some point, pushing it back a day or a week or a month pushes the project back a year.
Mhm. All right.
And I don't have a read on, a lot of that depends on how long the permitting process takes, and that's inherently unknowable.
Right.
So, I don't know how that affects.
Rebecca, Becky, you have your hand up. Hi.
Hi, how are you? I'm just wondering if we should cast maybe a wider net, maybe go further west in the state looking for people that can do this. I mean, these projects happen all over the state, and, I think maybe the people close to us might be super busy, but I mean, we could go on the state bid contract for combis, or, I mean, I can reach out to people in Western Mass that probably are familiar with doing this. I mean, it's a work from home type of job we're asking for. So maybe casting just a wider net might get us some solutions a little bit quicker. I don't know how you feel about that.
Go for it.
Yeah, I don't have any reason not to do that.
Right. I agree.
So Harry, you and I can maybe talk together this afternoon, and I can jot down some ideas, and maybe we could, like I said, just cast a wider net, make more
Mhm.
phone calls, find more people.
Mhm.
It is short notice, but there are other parts in the state and other companies in the state and that sort of thing. So
That would be great. I think that would be great.
Is there any state contract for services like this? where
I
we
mean, I
could-
can look. I have to go on Combis today for something separate, so that's kind of what made me think of it. I can search the database and see if there's anything on there.
Okay,
And that would really bypass the 3 quotes anyways, not that you haven't
Mhm.
already.
well, I've already asked for 9.
Yeah, you already got
We've
that
already
anyway.
met that. We've checked that
Yeah.
box already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've kept a log of who I've contacted and when,
Okay, good.
so we can document that.
Yeah. Thank you. That's it.
And I have some phone calls that I can make to the regional planning agency and things like that too. So,
Mhm.
all right. So Harry, if you could just shoot me an email with your phone number, that would be
Yep,
great.
okay.
All right, thanks.
Maybe we could add a question about that when we do our interviews. And just ask, did they use a financial analyst, and if so, who?
Oh, it's a good idea.
Maybe we can shake someone loose.
Harry, could you also send me your final document that you've been sending out? Thank you.
We can certainly add that question to see if we get any
Yeah,
extra
that's
help.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Harry brought up the topic of schedule. And do you want to talk about that for a minute now, Elaine, or do you want to do that later in the?
It's next on the agenda. It's after the next thing on the agenda, the
Oh, yeah.
schedule.
Yes, talk about it now or wait?
Well, wait, I
Wait.
think we'll just, yeah. I mean, the next thing is the evaluation process and the, including just the general feedback from our interviews, as Jan said on Friday. The presentations are not scored. They're really a way to fill in some of the info that we needed and to get a feel for the groups. But Jan certainly gave what I was feeling, that they all did a really good and thorough job and presented themselves well. Anybody else want to do any general comments about those interviews? Gary?
I had a number of questions that came up in people's comments, and the first one was in TCP, they talked about changing the target AMI based upon the market study.
Mhm.
So they're targeting X, an upper limit of 80%, but they could increase that based upon what the market study said? And is that, we can
yeah.
do that? I wasn't 100% sure what that meant.
Yeah, both they and POA said something
Yes, exactly. right.
similar to that. And I think it kind of is the kind of thing that happened at Nauset Green, when they were trying to go for 110%, but they found out they could only go to like 99 or 100. That's part of the process, I think, that gets worked on.
So even though we look at it today, we make an evaluation based upon that upper limit. And point of fact, whether they can achieve that or whether they can go over it is
Right.
really something to be determined.
Right.
Right.
So it makes it a little more tricky to evaluate the proposals.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly put 110%, but we also knew that would be a small number if we're able to get that. So, but yeah, it does. It's
Right.
one of the things that evolve.
I have a question that was raised by POA with regard to TCP. And that is that if there have multiple projects at the same time, are we competing with other people in their list for the state funding? And does it affect our ability to get that funding?
Well, that was something that Laura had brought up to us in meetings, that, you're only going to get so many funding agreements each year for your projects. We did ask POA that. I don't think we asked community builders that.
No, POA brought it up. There was not a question that we raised, but it just raised to me a question about is that another criteria that we have to take into consideration? Is that if they have multiple projects going on, or if they have multiple projects in the same area going on, are we competing for that state funding?
Yeah.
I guess I would ask the question, is those projects are projects that are existing projects, as is ours. Is the competition for funding going to be any different because one developer's doing 2 or 3 and another's doing only 1?
Yeah, I have no idea.
There are a specific number of awards and a specific number of projects that's larger than the number of awards. Doesn't that define what the competition is? I don't know.
Yes, exactly. I only raised it because they raised it. It was kind of an alarm bell to me. Is that a significant criteria? So honestly, I don't know is the answer.
And I also want to add, Gary, that I took away from Friday that both TCB and POA have projects coming up that are in the queue, maybe not in the funding queue right now, but are certainly coming up at the same time as Lawrence Road. For POA, for example, I believe it was Brewster Woods. For TCB, it's the former VFW down in Provincetown. So both those developers have projects coming in around the same time as Lawrence Road, and that was my concern. I do understand, the funding thing, and I think that's a great question, Gary. And maybe Laura can give us more clarification on how that plays out.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kathleen. Maybe we can get some guidance on it.
Oh, it did make the point, though, that they had not gone for the Provincetown project and were emphasizing Wellfleet. They made a big point,
Well,
actually.
that's true, but they're,
That's what I'm raising, yes.
yeah,
about
but they're the developer for Brewster Woods.
Yeah, but that's already under agreement and on its way. So, you know, that's separate, but they did really say that, I mean, that was a big point of, we want you. That was their idea. So.
And I don't know, I mean, some of these, there are programs all over the state that these developers are looking at. So I don't know if the funding is on a regional basis, like if they have a couple of projects in Western Mass and one on the Cape, how that works. So those are, you know, I know Laura addressed it briefly, saying it's something to look out for, you know.
Right.
But we can get more specifics on that. Laura has a new assistant named Emma McGurran, I think, and I've written to her to see if, while Laura's away, we might get to meet her and continue to get, you know, MHP's assistance in this.
So all of the developers, I was a little confused by this. All of the developers talked about changing their design based upon discussion and the land development agreement. So how much flexibility do we have when with regard to design features?
I think there's, my understanding would be there's potential for something in the LDA, but then the big one is going to be the ZBA. That's
Right,
what
we understand that, but now we're making a decision based upon, you know, this image. And if in point of fact, they could change it by, I'll give you one specific one. And that was the first time I saw, maybe I had missed it previously, 41 feet, 7 inches for the height of the POA building.
Right.
And it jumped out at me like 41 feet.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know how much flexibility or whether that is something we have to evaluate now in terms of making a decision.
Well, I agree with you, Gary. I mean, that was really scary for me too. And I think that, again, we have to go back to our RFP and the criteria. And we did a great deal of discussion with regard to Long Pond Road. Jay weighed in heavily on that. And I completely agreed with Jay's comments during that part of the RFP that we needed to be very, very careful on Long Pond Road. You put a 41-foot building there and it's not going to fly. It will go to the ZBA and we will probably see a lawsuit or whatever. So again, I thought they took a lot of creative license out of the RFP to do that 41-foot building. And they also used some very tasteful examples of height that we do have in Wellfleet. We were shown the Historical Society's building, which is a 3-story building, but I'll tell you, that's not 41 feet.
The problem also is that community builders was talking about 2.5 stories as well. And I think that would also be 40 feet at least, maybe not 41, but I got to figure the way they had the studio apartments up in that attic part, that's high. That's the 3rd floor. And I thought both of these proposals came in with over height, and we're talking about, one of them mentioned that they'd go for a variance under 40B for the height restriction, recognizing that. So I you know, we don't have any clear-cut anything. So I don't.
Right. I think going forward for myself, everything going forward right now with what we've seen from the presentations and their conceptual plans, I'm all I have in the back of my mind is the abutters and how we address our development with the surrounding area and what is going to prove problematic with regard to the ZBA and permitting. I know it's a friendly 40B and they're gonna go for a comprehensive permit. But I'm looking at some of the conceptual drawings and saying that's gonna be very problematic. And I don't wanna get into situations now that we know are gonna bring problems in the future. I look at what's going on in Cloverleaf. And you know, and that's gonna be 10 years before that's solved. I don't think we wanna go that route here.
Well, I think we have to be careful, you know, we have to look at the need to and filling the need appropriately. And some of the more dense buildings there were to try to create more green space as we go along. So I think, you know, we will have to look at this balance.
Right.
Between filling the need and providing a reasonable buffer. Yeah.
Yeah, Elaine, this kind of illuminates an inherent issue here that's driven by the density. It's, you can either go out or you can go up. But if you want to achieve the density we've asked for, you have to do one or the other. Civico's one, I think, is more spread out than the other two. As a result, it hasn't gone up as far. But there's a trade-off there that you can only resolve by reducing the density. You're either going to spread out or you're going to build buildings that are perhaps taller than what zoning allows. And you know, short of saying, okay, 40 units instead of 46, I don't know how you avoid one or the other of those trigger points.
Right. And I think developers, you know, somebody could have come in with one apartment building with 46 units that would have been really easy to build. It would have been incredibly highly efficient. It would have left the most green space.
And we didn't want it.
They don't think we want something like that.
Right.
So it's a balance, it's a balancing act, but I think the needs of, you know, we agree we want a project that isn't going to get held up, hopefully, but we also want a project that fills the needs of our town and the people. Yeah. Olga has her hand up, and then Jay.
Yes, could someone clarify the 40B process, the friendly perhaps versus unfriendly? Does the ZBA get to act, or is their determination have any credibility? I don't mean credibility, but any legal stance, or can they just go ahead and do it? Could someone clarify that?
Well, as a former member of the ZBA, having heard some of these things, it seems to me that at the end of the day, 40B gives them the right to, you know, to go past the town zoning.
Mm-hmm.
But they come with their lawyers and they try to convince the board because they want the board's blessing starting off. And the process can last a while. I was just talking to someone the other day that did a ribbon cutting on an affordable housing project in Hartford. And it took 8 years for this project to move ahead.
Oh,
You know, I mean, it can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think even for our 6-unit Gull Pond development, the ZBA used a 40B consultant to help them, you know, make the determinations that were legal and the findings of facts and all the explanations for it. And I would very much assume the ZBA will potentially take advantage of that service that's offered to have a 40B consultant on hand.
as a 40B person, because I was chair actually for some years of the zoning board of appeals in my last town, just to answer friendly and unfriendly, Olga, I think we bent over backwards to think of the things ahead of time that would make it unfriendly. And by talking to abutters, by going to the Board of Health, by going to the wastewater people, those are all things that allow it to be a friendly 40B. If you just barge in and say you're going to build 46 units and you don't care, you can get this 40B, and then you hear all these things from the different boards, then it's an unfriendly. And there'll be many, many challenges. But I think so far we're on the right track with them, a friendly one.
Mhm. Thank you.
Gary?
Moving to a different topic, I think the takeaway I had was that while I thought parking ratio was a really big thing as a differentiator, what we heard was no problem, we'll just add spaces.
Right.
And is that what the impression that other people got? And so therefore it's not really a differentiator?
Pretty much.
Yes, and at least one developer made the argument that studio apartments tend to be occupied by people that own either one or zero vehicles. And so the overall parking requirement could be satisfied with less than 1.5 units.
Right.
And that had a certain logic to it.
Right, I agree, Harry. All I was talking about was when I was doing my initial take, I said, well, that's a differentiator. And
As did I.
Here it's, yeah, now I hear that it's not so inflexible.
One of the developers also alluded to the fact that the parking spaces along the ball field were public or town parking, and I was curious about that situation. The parking spaces that are right along the ball field currently. Are those?
That's town parking. It's not school parking.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. The school parking is in, over on the side of the school where the teachers park. Although some teachers do park in that section because it's a closer walk in bad weather. I thought they were referring to the parking that's there from the police station.
I think one developer mentioned by the ball field, so that was the one I wanted to clarify, whether that was town parking and whether that would cause any issue if it was being used regularly. I mean, I think a great space for visitors and everything to the to the homes that will be there, but it's just if it's town parking, that's good.
Well, you also have to consider that when there's a baseball game on the field, that's where the kids' parents park, so it wouldn't always be available. And then all of a sudden, if you have the community parking there and it's a baseball afternoon, then what? There's no room. So.
Right.
Or if there's town meeting.
Right. Well, that's true, right?
First come, first serve, yeah.
A lot of people will be able to walk to town meeting from there.
That's true.
I was thinking, Elaine, won't it be great if all our town meetings are held outside from here on in? And we have this wonderful 46 unit development surrounding us while we're having town meeting. I think it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, you're looking forward to that December 4th outdoor town meeting?
Yeah, not that one so much, but yeah.
Okay, any other general comments from Friday?
I was impressed also with how much research they had done, specifically with the pictures they had taken and the other size buildings and thinking of what Wellfleet is like and used to, and very, very well done. These are very serious proposals, and I think they were very thoughtfully done and sincerely wished for, which makes a difference in my mind. If it's just one more job, That's not what we're looking for in Wellfleet. We want, I hope, a sincere job to build community as well as build houses. So I found that their particular interest in our town was meaningful.
Right, and I felt like we could see the strength of the teams they had all put together, and you know, the logic of how they reached out, and really trying to pull in as many local resources as possible.
I take just a couple of small criticisms. I was a little taken aback with TCB when they started and opened up their presentation with the Housing Authority's brochure on housing angels. I thought, well, you're really preaching to the choir here, because you know, we know how you know, how much distress our housing is in. And I also noticed, and I don't want to go into it very deeply, but I noticed how the pitch of the sale, you know.
Yeah.
I appreciate Jan's comments, but this is a very big project to these individuals, and how they pitched their sale to us and how strongly they pitched it resonated with me. So
No, not me.
Okay, well, I don't know if we ever get follow-up questions, if the developers follow up at all. I've been looking at websites of other developments, and it seems like that can happen. So, but we haven't heard anything back yet. Okay, so now I really do want to talk about continuing with the evaluation proposals, and I think, you know, hearing from the references is going to be a really important part of that. So hopefully, maybe hoping by Friday, if at all possible, we'll maybe have heard from everybody. It can take a while, I know, but thank you, three, for focusing on that this week. You all got the sort of score sheets that Laura sent around. Kathleen, I'm going to put a different format of it with the other papers I drop off at Town Hall for you.
oh, I picked up the ones, but
Yeah,
we have a different.
It's just bigger. I made it easier to read.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Could
And
you do the same for me? Because I couldn't print it on one page, or it just,
okay.
it was in some other format that I couldn't print.
Olga, it's in Excel. If you take it.
Okay, I don't think I have Excel.
that-
So if it became a PDF, I would be able to look at it, or numbers.
Okay, I'll either drop it off or see if, can you make a PDF out of an Excel spreadsheet?
I think I tried, but try again. I'll try again.
Okay, all right. But then this brings us to the process we want to use at this point. I mean, we had our sort of general walkthrough. We really, the other thing Laura said was for everybody to go through in pencil and give their ratings, which we didn't do. We sort of talked more generally. So that might be part of the next step for the areas that we feel like we have as much of the information as we have, to use those score sheets and mark our own feelings with our questions. 8 people, it's a lot of people to get consensus for, and that's what we have to work towards. I don't know if assigning any numbers to those areas would help at all. How do people feel about that? No comment. Okay. Do people feel that by Wednesday they could fill out the sheets with their own ratings to start to share?
Yes, but I think we should decide, Elaine, whether we are going to use numbers or not. I should have been a little quicker to respond to what you said. to me, the numbers will only lead us to something that maybe we don't want. I think so many of these 3 developers are comparable in a lot of their ways. For example, they're all green. They all are talking about energy efficiency and solar panels and all of those good things. They've all had experience. They all have a plan how they're going to make this affordable. It's the things that are different about them that are really key in our decisions. The size of the buildings, the size of the inside, the storage, the smaller things, perhaps. And somehow I just don't think a 0, 5, 10 or a 1, 5, 7 or whatever these things are that people use is going to lead us really to an intelligent decision. And it might just force an issue that we don't want. So somehow, I think we ought to just say if we think they're acceptable, unacceptable, or highly advantageous, and just do a narrative somehow and work that back and forth if we can. That's, I'm inexperienced in this, but that's just my instinct here.
Yeah, Elaine, I'm also gonna agree with Jan with regard to the numbers. First, I'm gonna state foremost that I hope that that our process will be as transparent as possible to our 3 developers. That's very important. But I think, and I think that if, as individuals, we were to write comments on all 3, and then from the comments there, as a group, discuss our comments, why we made these comments. My comments right now are, and again, I agree with Jan that they're all bringing the same thing to the table. What is the best fit for Wellfleet, for our residents, for our community? What is the best fit? What is going to be the best fit for the abutters and our town in general? This is going to be a working partnership from here on in, and that's where my thinking is going. So I don't know how the rest of the group feels about just writing down their comments, and then from that we can assemble a direction.
Right there, I would encourage everybody to, there is a space on the evaluation sheet for comments, and I think you're right. That's where the differences and the discussion points where we have to really come together are going to come from.
Right.
Olga?
Did we agree on numbers just so we could have, if someone's doing 1, 2, 3 and someone's doing 0 to 10, they're not gonna, count.
What I hear is we're not going to use the numbers. We're just going to use the, not the 3, what's the first?
Highly advantageous.
No, is the first one not acceptable? What's the first?
Unresponsive or
Unacceptable.
Elaine, it says unacceptable. So if you said that they were, H for highly acceptable, A for advantageous, and U for unacceptable, we'd have a common language, and it fits with the evaluation criteria.
Right. So we're just going to use those 3 designations, Olga. We're not going to assign any range of numbers.
But we could count up, we have 5 A's acceptable on so-and-so versus, if you want to come up with a number to evaluate, that would be one way.
Well, I think maybe if we get to a point that we have to do something like that, but for now, we'll try working with those 3 and the comments.
Elaine,
Yes,
I think what we said in the RFP is that we'll review and evaluate all proposals that have been received by the submission deadline based on the criteria outlined herein. Evaluation of the proposals will be based on the information provided in the proposer's submissions in accordance with the submission requirements of this RFP and any interviews, references, and additional information requested or gathered by the town. The town will select the developer it determines has presented the most advantageous proposal. The town reserves the right to select the most advantageous proposal that best meets the needs of the community. This may not be the proposal that achieves the highest score. So we have some flexibility in terms of our final decision, but I do think that we should be evaluating each of the proposals on each of the 5 criteria. Again, putting aside for a moment financials and references, because we haven't done those yet, but on the first 5 criteria as whether they're unacceptable, advantageous, or highly advantageous. And I wouldn't consider anybody that gets an unacceptable ranking in any category, but that will help us at least perhaps identify the either a clear first choice or a clear choice between 2 proposals. I don't think that, I think I agree with everybody that assigning numerical scores is really, it's really, I think, inappropriate. It's not like you're trying to measure the height of a group of people where
Take an average.
differences where ordinality matters. What you're talking about is ranking them where cardinality matters. First, second, third, advantageous, unacceptable. So I agree that numbers probably are not the way to go. But in the end, the final judgment may come down between choosing between 2 proposals that score the same
Mhm.
or 2 proposals that score very close to one another.
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, as speaking as someone who tried doing points early on, I wasn't that satisfied where it was taking me, and I wasn't that satisfied that it was really fair, even though that's what I was trying to do. So that's just my experience.
Okay, so as Harry said, we will be concentrating on the first 5 criteria, not looking at financial feasibility or the references one at the end. That does include site visits and interviews, but until we have the references,
Okay.
we'll save those 2. Anything more on that? Schedule. We have 2 more meetings this week. We have nothing scheduled next week or the week after until that one on October 1st, when we were hoping we might have a financial pro forma evaluation. I'd like to be sure we get 1 or 2 meetings in with Laura present as we kind of get down to the finals. But
So next, the following week, Elaine, on Monday, the 20th, could we determine if it's possible to do a site visit to Lincoln on September the 20th, which is a Monday?
okay, I'd be up for that.
I'm
Anybody
able
else?
to go.
Anybody else want to go to Lincoln? Okay, you'll be okay with 2 of us going to take a look?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Gary?
Gary wants to come?
No. I have another
Very well.
question.
Jerry wants somebody else to go.
All I'm trying to do is to work backwards. Originally, we said we were hoping to make a recommendation to the select board for their meeting on the 21st of September. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
It's not realistic.
Yes, no. So the question I have now is, what is our target date to make a recommendation? What select board meeting
I
are we
think
hoping to make a recommendation for? And does it affect what Harry talked about was, does it affect our ability to get funding this year? And reading in the proposals, Harry, it seemed like the likelihood of our making a recommendation, getting through ZBA is probably unrealistic to look at this year for funding round, but that's a question I have.
Mhm.
Is if we don't have that pressure, then we can allow more time for the financial analysis as well as our own evaluations.
Well, let's, if I may, Elaine, it seems like what we have to do is we have to make a recommendation to the select board.
Right.
They've got to formally select a developer. Somebody's got to negotiate, the land disposition agreement and the lease. Then you've got the 40B process. And some of these developers, I think, have talked about that whole thing from being selected by the select board to getting a 40B permit as being potentially as long as 400 days, which is, 14, 15 months. Which kind of suggests that they're not going to meet a November funding round this year,
Right.
certainly. And they may not meet one next year unless
Yeah.
things really fall very, very well.
Well, if we and they do their jobs well, maybe the ZBA process will be a little bit less, but we don't control that.
Mhm.
We don't, but hopefully we can select a developer
Right.
that
Exactly.
knows how to do it and is willing to work with the community and will make the process, more,
That's
Um,
painful.
Right.
quicker,
Yes, I agree.
certainly aspirational that, yeah.
What are the dates of the select board meetings in October? That's you or Rebecca have that information in front of you?
Should be the 12th and the 26th, I think.
Right,
The 12th and the 26th. So in order for us to make a recommendation to the select board, we'd have to have it prior to the Thursday before. So it is either October 7th
Mhm.
or October
21st.
21st, our target date for making a recommendation.
right. But Gary, keep in mind that the select board can also, pencil in an extra meeting during the month. This is kind of going to be a big ticket item for them. There'll be a lot of discussion. So I wouldn't be surprised if the chair were to have, an additional meeting during the month of October.
Right,
Just for this.
I don't have any problem with that, Kathleen. You may be exactly right. I'm just trying to target a date by which we should have a recommendation.
Right.
It's, at this point, it's going to depend on the financial pro forma.
Yeah,
evaluation.
it's still up in the air.
Yeah, but,
We may know more from Rebecca by the end of the day.
right. And if we have to extend it, I would still love.
Sure, we
to-
do. Right. I'm just trying to work towards the date.
Okay, I just found what I was looking for in the RFP, and that is that proposals are binding on the proposer for 120 days following the opening of the proposal. So August, what's that, September, October, November,
Mhm.
December 2nd, 4 months.
So that's.
So, so we have, beyond that, a developer can say, well, circumstances have changed. No, thank you. I'm out of here.
Well, they could do that anytime, couldn't they?
Yeah, I suppose.
I suppose. I mean, certainly there are ways of being non-cooperative that'll get you kicked out without, you don't need much imagination to find a way to do that.
I am so naive. I looked at your schedule, Elaine, which said that we were going to make the decision on Wednesday. That is the original
Initially, right.
optimism that we had.
Yep.
And I bought it, and I thought.
I didn't.
And there'll be a few little leftovers on the 17th, and I can go off on my trip feeling that everything is accomplished. So I have to say that I am sorry, but on Friday, I am leaving and will be gone until October 2nd. And so as horrible as I feel about it, you have to rule me out for being involved. And I will do my references before I go for sure. But I'm really sorry about it. I just hate it.
You're saying this Friday you go
This
away?
Friday I go. Yeah, Friday afternoon I leave.
Okay, if you don't, well, right now, we only have one other meeting scheduled within that time period.
I know, but I'm giving you, I just have to say, because I'm upset about it and I just wanted to get it
Mhm.
out and, so not that you need me particularly, but I wanted to be involved all the way through. So,
If for any reason you can't reach all your references before you go, let me know.
yeah, I'll give that a good try. I'll start today. Yeah.
Was everybody still okay with 1 PM this Wednesday and 10 AM? on-
No, Elaine, can I'm good on 1 PM for Wednesday, but, could I ask the committee, to, maybe meet on the 17th, which is Friday at 11 and not, 10? Or I have a dental appointment that I just can't miss.
Or we-
I have also have an appointment that I could go to that I can get out of. But
If we
Maybe-
could push the meeting on to 11 o'clock.
can we
Well,
push it to the following Monday, maybe?
No,
Well, not that Monday, but I know the 10 AM was because Becky was going to be back and had scheduled that in. So
Oh, all right.
I can do any time on Friday.
okay. Can other people do 11 o'clock on Friday instead of
Yeah.
10?
yeah.
Okay, well, let's
Thank
stick
you.
with that. And then, do we want to pencil in one other meeting the next week, or do we want to wait and see what we have in hand by Friday?
Let's pencil it in, and if we don't need it, so be it, but then we'll have it on our calendars.
So we would be looking at the 21st, 22nd, or 23rd. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
All good.
23rd is not good for me because Mike's got a couple of appointments I have to take her to.
Okay. How about Wednesday, the 22nd?
That's fine. I'm free until 4 o'clock.
Elaine,
Mhm.
we did schedule that CDP meeting for 10:15 that morning, which we moved any number of times. We could move it again, but I just note that.
Well, we were meeting at 9 before, which could work. I mean, for us, if we wanted to have a 1-hour meeting, or it's kind of a shame to,
I can't meet at 9, Elaine.
Okay.
Sorry,
okay. 11,
I have dredging. 11's good.
how about 11 on the 22nd?
Good for me.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay,
Did we not tentatively schedule one for the 21st? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was to go to the select board. I'm sorry. I
yeah,
think
well, the only other one we had was October 1st at 9 AM.
Okay,
Um,
so the
and-
22nd at 11 o'clock?
Mhm. And maybe we should do one, we have that Friday, the week after, but we can take a look at that week too, in addition to the Friday meeting. But if we don't have the pro formas, we're just kind of stuck. We may have everything else by then. So let's stick with what we have now. 1 PM this Wednesday, 11 on Friday. I'll change the posting. And then 11 on the 22nd. I'll see if I can talk Jim Hood into going to Lincoln in his Lexus. I mean, his Tesla. That would be fun.
I'd be might be beyond his radius.
Yeah, but I bet they have a charging station at Oriole Landing.
Oh, that's good.
Anything else before we depart?
I
Just,
just want to say, Harry and Elaine, you did a great job on Friday facilitating the meeting. It was a long meeting, not quite as long as some of my select board meetings, but you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Olga, I just sent you the evaluation as a PDF.
Oh, thank you. I was able to print it. I told
Oh,
Elaine in the chat.
anyone
Thank you.
else needs it, let me know.
Okay,
I sent it to you as well, Elaine.
so
And thank everybody for being so reasonable and thoughtful and good people to work with. I think it's a very good committee. I'm glad we can so far work together because we might get a little more divisive when we get to picking. So it'll be interesting.
okay, thank you. So Olga and Jan and Kathleen, if you have any questions about the references and who to call and.
Right.
please
I
get-
just don't think you can expect any one person that you're going to talk with to answer all those questions. So,
Right, right,
you know, you just have to be reasonable. Yeah.
right, right, yeah, yep.
Mm.
Okay, thank you all. See you on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Okay,
Bye-bye,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.